Hi, this is Mike Young with Noble Warriors. You're about to hear a message entitled Being a Knight in a World of Tyrants, presented by Keith Walker. Keith is with the Knights of the 21st Century. He's from Lebanon, Pennsylvania. This workshop was part of the Iron Sharpens Iron Men's Conference hosted by Noble Warriors at Grace Church of Fredericksburg on Saturday, March 10th, 2012. I pray the message will challenge and encourage you as you walk with Christ and lead your family.
All right, welcome, gentlemen.
I hope there's some.
Real quick, what I want you to do is this. You've been talking to a couple guys. If you haven't talked to anybody yet, you need to do it now. Tell the guy next to you what is the best movie you've ever seen regarding men. What's the worst movie you've ever seen regarding men that you can admit to in this crowd? All right, so what's the best movie you've ever seen regarding men? One of the best movies I've ever seen regarding men is Count of Monte Cristo. All right, and that works out real well. And there's a whole dearth of movies I can tell you that I've walked out of regarding men. But I think it was what's a stupid one? It was by he was a never mind. I can't remember. So tell the guy next to you your favorite movie about men. Now, if you don't watch movies, you've never seen a movie in your life, you gotta say courageous because you're here. So that'll work out real well. But don't ever say. But you can't say that's the worst movie you've ever seen about men either, because you gotta find something else. So go ahead and share with each other. All right, find it out.
I don't know, there's so many.
King of the Serpents?
What is that? I'm courageous.
Right. All right. How many of you, after hearing from the guy next to you, you're a little nervous to be sitting next to him, right? You went through that moment there? Let me tell you a couple things real quick and tell you what we're going to kind of do here. There will be some interaction with each other as well as back and forth with us. But because it's really important, what we had on the screen in there, we had a huge debate when we were creating the campfire thing, because we're not a campfire organization. That's like the Girl Scout brownie thing. But having men sit and talk is huge. We don't do that anymore. And it's actually what makes what we do work so well. We get done teaching and we break into campfires, small groups, and we work through stuff with each other, and we do life with each other, we battle with each other. Men don't do life well alone. We don't. In fact, one of our principles is a man never stands alone unless he's taking a stand. And I'll explain that to you a little bit later. So it's one of the concepts that we have. You gotta have guys in your life. When a guy walks into my office and has a problem, I say, tell me who has a rope tied around your waist. Tell me what man has a rope tied around your waist. Because a man without a rope tied around his waist is going to fall. It's just going to happen. You need to have men pouring into your life. And so we're going to, so one of the things I want you to do here is just to not be afraid to, even guys you might never see again, to say, let's get in the habit of talking into guys. How many of you guys came here really alone? You didn't come with a group. You're just here alone. So number one, you're all my heroes. Everyone just raised their hand. That is courageous. For a man to take a risk alone at a non-sporting event is enormous. It's absolutely enormous. I mean, it is, and it's weird when you go to a sporting event alone. It's really, it's almost like you need to, when you ever go to a sporting event and you like your wife and you bring her girlfriend and they go to the bathroom together. You don't ever do that with your guys, right? Hey, that's great. Let's go to the bathroom. You don't do that, right? But we don't really do life alone well. So it's very courageous for all you guys. So number one, that's huge. And two is I don't want you to do life alone, though. Because I can kick you off so much easier when you do life alone. Let me tell you real quick about me. I'm a pastor at a church in Manheim, Pennsylvania. We're a church of about 11,000. I see about 1,000 men each week in our Nights program. We've seen about 1,400 men come to know Christ through Nights in the last 4 years. We started as men's fraternity. We love men's fraternity, what men's fraternity is doing, but we taught it for 4 years and you only teach the same thing over and over again before guys go, hello, I've been here. So we created nights 4 years ago. Roy Smith is a psychologist, a man of God, who he has written the material. We then designed it so I can present it to men, and I present it. And it has really revolutionized how we think. It's 5 years, just so you know. This is the only commercial you're going to get here. We're not really doing a commercial. This is year 1. It's a 5-year program. You can do 1 to 5 if you want. Year 1 is Squire. We're going to teach you new language as a man, how to be a man, and we're going to change how you do life. We're going to call you up to be a knight. That's Squire. Year 2 is Warrior, teaching men where to fight. Year 3 is Oracle. What is the wisdom of a knight, so that when he speaks, he has something worth saying. Year 4 is Round Table. You don't do life alone. You have a round table of guys. You all lay your swords down at the table, and you fight for one another. You know, it's kingdoms coming together. And year 5 is Defense. It means that any room you walk into, any place you go, job, driving in your car, involved with your family, in any scenario, the world is safer because you just walked in it. That's what you were designed. You were designed, you were put on earth first because you were the key to fighting an enemy who was about to destroy the woman. I mean, that's what it was all about. There's some powerful things. So that's what we kind of do. It's 24 weeks. Guys break it up. Some guys do it 6 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 weeks, like 33 is doing. Some guys do it every other week for a year. We do it for 24 straight weeks with Thanksgiving and Christmas off. We get together on Thursday nights at 7:30. I have about 700 guys. On Wednesday morning at 6 a.m., I have 300 guys, because it means guys that don't get up real early are smarter than guys that do. And so we have about 300 guys that meet there. We kind of have a man environment, but the way we do it is designed for a guy who doesn't know Christ to walk in comfortably with a guy who does. Our whole desire, everything we created in this, was to create a moment for you to be able to bring your unconnected friends, if you're a believer in Christ, and bring the one that isn't. And so it allows, it's a very different kind of environment. When you see the way we set it up, it's designed that way. As a result of that, we have whole businesses doing this for their employees. We have it in prisons, we have it in military, we have it in schools, but we also have, often we have it in churches. But it's a great discipleship thing, but it allows you to help guys go forward. Yes, sir?
What age do you, what is
Our group is from 13 to 78. Much below 13, you know, I don't know whether your kids are ready to hear us talk about whatever we talk about. But 13 to 78, we divide our age groups by one of 2 ways. You either all go with a common age group, so you're all doing common life experiences, or if fathers and sons want to be together, or if a group forms and they want to be together, then we don't care about ages. We love older men teaching younger men. We think that's a great concept. The problem is, when you put older men in a group with younger men, the older men never get input into their lives, they're always giving. So we said, let's put all the guys at every level. And we have all kinds of guys. We've had, my favorite group we've ever had, I had a group of 8 guys. In that group was a judge who had argued before the U.S. Supreme Court. There was a prison guard, and there was a prisoner in that group. So a judge before the Supreme Court, a lawyer, a prison guard, and a prisoner. They weren't all connected to each other, all in the same group, working through life together. Kind of a powerful kind of thing, and that's the whole idea of sitting around campfires and working it out. So that's what we do. If you're interested in doing that, stop by my booth. I'll give you a CD, a DVD, so you can at least take a look at it. Again, we approach this very differently. It's not your normal Bible study. Just one thing. It is a Bible study. The problem is that I want an unconnected guy who doesn't know the Bible to feel comfortable. So what we do is we have all the passages are in the back, and then we do a nightly news each week in the trail, where the nightly news will be a story from somebody in the Bible. But all the truths that we teach are here. We just don't make them turn to the chapter and verse. Because again, an unconnected guy just feels like he's out of his element. And men tend to bail. So you know our church has changed. We were a church of 300 15 years ago. We're a church of 11,000 now. And the vast majority of our guys have come to know Christ. We have a male-heavy church. We have more males than females in our church. And our leadership is unbelievable. I mean, I'm so honored to be around these guys. They teach me every day of our lives. So that just gives you a quick overview of what we do, but that's really not why you're here. All right, so any questions on that? Yeah.
Do you attribute your male heaviness to the principles you're including in this?
We would have to say that men are very excited about hanging out with us. So it's not and women will go wherever men are. So it works out real well. You know that I think it's Robert Lewis says this, 94% of the time when a man goes to church, his family follows. 25% of the time when a child or a mother goes to church. So 25% of the family follows 94% of the time. want a man goes to church. So I think that's part of it for us. And the other thing is that these guys must have a lot of male kids because sooner or later it's hard to get that balance worked out. I have 4 sons. I don't know how to do a girl. Every one of you guys have done a girl. Way to go. We don't have a clue. We're all done. All right. Anything else? Any other questions? Yeah.
Got any more of the handouts?
We have the handouts. Does anybody have any handouts in the back? Pass them forward. No, just pass them forward up here, guys, and we'll give those handouts to the guys. Great question. Anything else? All right, I am honored, unbelievably honored to be here. I cannot believe that God would allow me to talk to guys like you. I am one of the greatest joys of my life is talking to men. I don't care whether it's 1,000 guys at my church on a weekend or 2 guys talking at a table somewhere. And so, just so you know, I am extremely honored. I get men. I have 4 sons from the age of 30 to 18. We know what caused them, but they kept coming. And my oldest son has my grandson, which we still not a granddaughter. He and his wife are in Virginia, actually, and near Lynchburg. And then my second son is 27 years old as of this week. Went through a horrible divorce. I don't think there was ever a non-horrible divorce. His wife was unfaithful to him, and the principles he learned here, he actually felt like, I'm not sure they work now, and so now he's kind of holding God at a distance. That's where Joel is in his journey. He's one of my favorite guys on earth. He's all in or all out with God. He's all out right now. So he's going through a rough time. My 21-year-old had brain cancer as of the age of 18, and so we've been battling through that. He is now 14 months clear, just finished his 12 months of chemo, ran triathlons, wrestles, and all that. All my sons, my 3 oldest sons are all athletes kind of thing. One played for Penn State, was the captain of the Penn State wrestling team. One was the captain of, played soccer for Penn State. One was supposed to play and then got cancer. But he's doing okay, and he's engaged, and he teaches me he's a courageous guy. Then my 18-year-old, we have no idea where he came from. He was just the star in Fiddler on the Roof last week. Tell you, singing, dancing, Walker. What's that? We don't even know what to do with this whole thing. It's been a blast watching him, and so we're learning all the time with him. Lynn finally made me get a dog that was female just so she could have one other person in our lives. Then I've been married 36 years. I spent the first 20 years being a jerk. And very good at it. And I was, everybody else thought I was great, but she knew. All right, so that's been a real cool transformation in my life. I want to read for you something that, I'm not going to sing it, but I'm going to read it for you. This is a song by Katy Perry. It came out about 2 years ago. She had a pretty cool video that went with it. Not Katy Perry, Christina Perry. Christina Perry, and it's called Jars of Hearts. So listen to the lyrics. It's this. I know I can't take one more step towards you, because all that's waning is regret. This is a woman singing a song to a man. And don't you know I'm not your ghost anymore? You lost the love I loved the most. Okay, she's into the relationship. She's now feels safer to be away from it. I've learned to live half alive. And now you want me one more time? Who do you think you are? Running around leaving scars, collecting your jar of hearts, tearing love apart. You're going to catch a cold from the ice inside your soul. So don't come back for me. Who do you think you are? Wow, we're going to that one right now. Well, maybe if you're an EMT, if you could go over that, that would be good. I hear you're asking all around if I'm anywhere to be found, but I've grown too strong to ever fall back into your arms. Whew. Hear that? This woman is safer away from this man. Right? And learn to live half alive, and now you want me one more time. Who do you think you are? Running around leaving scars, collecting your jar of hearts, tearing love apart. You're going to catch a cold from the ice inside your soul. Then she says this. So don't come back for me. Who do you think you are? Dear, it took so long just to feel all right. Remember how to put the light back in my eyes. I wish I had missed the first time that we kissed, because you broke all your promises. Now you're back, and you don't get me back. And then it goes on, you're running back, and she ends up with saying, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? And every time I hear this song, it breaks my heart. Because he was not designed to scar her. And if I ask you, how many of you, your mates, the person you're dating, or even one of your children have been sexually abused by a male, the reality is a lot of us are going to raise our hands, including me, whose Lynn was sexually abused when she was 5 years old. Her mother walks in the room, sees it happening in a laundry area in a German military base, sees it happening and walks back out and leaves her. 5 years old. I mean, how do you get over that, right? At our hands, guys, we're leading on off the charts in crimes. We're leading off the charts in all this negative stuff. As a matter of fact, if you will watch the average commercial, you will find out 3 things about men. You can write it across the top of your sheets. The only negative thing I'm going to say this whole time. And that is when we take a look at the whole statement of how men are seen today, 3 words: simple, selfish, cruel. Simple, selfish, and cruel. The exact opposite of the way we were designed. Simple, selfish, and cruel. Gentlemen, you are nothing but simple. You are not even close to being simple. Now, maybe compared to a woman. You're simple. God says in the Bible, you gotta love your wife in an understanding way. That's a full-time job for the rest of your life. All right? It's just, it's very, very interesting how our minds work and how their minds work. But God says that you're not simple. You are very complex. We give out dog tags when our guys graduate, and you get a different color dog tag depending on how many years you've been in and all that. On the back of every dog tag is the same thing. It's the core of a man: body, soul, spirit, mind. We call it shadow, which is your sin area, and then the self, which makes the choice. God says, I'm going to give you the choice. Powerful, powerful thing. We need to understand something, that how do we get to simple, selfish, and cruel? How do we get there? Simple means you're not very complex. Selfish means it's all about you. And cruel means that it's caused you to devalue the other human being. As long as men are perceived that way, they have not always been perceived that way. It's happened in the last 120 years. Just so you know, before the Industrial Revolution, in the late 1800s, fathers were always with their sons. Always. So it was easy to hand off your beliefs. Also hand off your garbage. So I understand that. But it was easier to hand off your beliefs. And boys were trained by their dads. When the Industrial Revolution hit, we give our best parts of our day somewhere else. We leave before the sun comes up, we come on after the sun goes down, somebody else raises our kids, right? And so boys grow up not knowing who they are. After the Second World War, the greatest generation, as Tom Brokaw called them, came home from the war, and they had seen such horrific things that now not only were they physically disconnected by their hours away, they were emotionally disconnected, and they didn't cry, and they didn't say, I love you. Every son needs to hear, I love you, I'm proud of you, this is what you're good at. Every son needs to hear that, right? These guys didn't know how to say that. That wasn't true, they didn't know how to say it. So now I'm emotionally disconnected from my dad, and I am physically disconnected from him. The women's movement hit in the 70s. It was key that women's rights happen. You see, women and men are equal. They are. We as a culture weren't acknowledging that. It was key. The problem was we didn't know how to stop it. And we said, once we were equal, we said we're the same. Men and women are not the same. Right, close. But we said they're the same, and as a result of that, men don't know how to treat women. And all of a sudden, I have no training, no relationship from my dad, nothing's happening, and guess what we're known as? Watch a commercial. You just name any commercial you want. If a man's in it, he is simple, selfish, and cruel. It's the way it is. And why? Because, guys, I think on our watch, we said we're okay with that. But I'm not.
We've actually said it's funny.
What's that?
We've actually said it's
We
funny.
we actually laugh along with it and say, you know what? That's just the way boys are. Leslie Gore wrote a song about that in the 60s. If you're old as me, Leslie Gore had the song and say, that's the way boys are. So that's why it wasn't surprising in 2005 or 2004 when Leslie Gore came out of the closet and said she was gay. Because that's the way boys are. You see, I think there's something about us that we need to understand. As long as we laugh it off, as long as we don't think it's important, we're not going to be transformed guys. Here's what I want you to do. I would like you just to share with the guy you're with right here. And again, if you're here with your son or somebody from your group at school, whoever you're with, just share. Who did you hear about sex from? Who did you hear about sex from? All right? And if you haven't ever heard about sex, cool. But who did you hear about sex from? All right? I heard it from Joel Foster in a tree fort when I was 13 years old. I thought boys went to the bathroom and girls. That's the only way I could figure out this was when he told me about this thing, right? My mom threw some book at me about masturbation when I was 11, I didn't read it, and I didn't want to go blind. Never mind. And but one of the things that was so much part of it is that's where I learned. I didn't learn it from my dad. I had an okay dad for a season of his life. Where did you hear about sex? Where did you learn about sex? Go tell each other where you learned.
What are they doing?
How many of you, the guy you're sitting next to who just talked to you, how many of you he said his dad? Raise your hand if the guy that you talked to said his dad. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3, and that's actually pretty high. Yeah. If I were to have 100 guys in the room, if I got 5 that said my dad, that'd be a pretty high number. Now, interestingly enough, because of events like this, more and more young men are hearing from sex from their dads. You know what's interesting? We teach in year 3. Now, this will like mess your whole thing up if you ever get oracle and all of a sudden we teach in year 3 the one word you want to associate with sex. Every time you think the word sex, you'll think this word. I guarantee if I said quarterback, you'd say football. If I said spark plug, you'd say car. If I said bass, you say fishing. If I say sex, you say, and then you know what? None of you are going to say this word. None of you. Honesty. Honesty. God designed sex and honesty to go together. You don't ever think honesty without sex. Ever, ever, ever. Guess what? I learned in a tree fort with my friend. You got to keep this thing hidden. Be dishonest about sex. And it carries over into everything, guys. Sexuality. I was addicted to pornography from the age of 12 to 27. It took me through Bible college. I was a pastor. I was a speaker. I was married. But I had learned to be dishonest about sexuality. You know what pornography is, right? It teaches you that you use another person and where it doesn't cost them in your mind. Makes sex selfish, not honest. And it messed you up so bad. I mean, part of my wound, Robert Lewis teaches in men's fraternity. Have you ever done frat? How many of you guys ever do frat? Have you ever done frat? Robert Lewis teaches that the mother wound is where your mom overprotects you and you think that women take care of you. Part of my struggle with pornography was the fact that my mom took care of men in her life. My dad and me, she took care of us. And so it made me think that women take care of men. Women don't take care of men, it's the other way around. But we get all messed up in this thing as we go down this journey. So keeping that in mind, just so you know, you're not out of the national average to have not heard about sex from your dad. Now, what did God have in mind? Now, in order to do this, let me take us back to before the fall. What did God? There are 4 things that God designed in us. He planted in us, and those things exist that if they run their course, every woman on earth will be safe when you're with her. Every woman. We teach our men that if you don't know how to protect the heart of every woman, you'll never learn how to protect the heart of your woman. That's a fact. If I'm going to use a woman over here, I'm going to use my wife. In any way. Until you learn to protect the heart of every woman, you'll never learn to protect the heart of your woman. It doesn't mean you treat all women the same. I have males that are my friends. I don't have females that are friends. Why? Because I'm a jerk. I know that. I can mess up in the area of sexuality. So I make love to one woman for my entire life. Right? That's the way God designed it. All right? But to protect the heart of every woman is what we are wired to do. Now, in order to do that, let me give you 4 phrases. Some of this comes from, anybody read Wild at Heart by Eldridge? Good book. Good book. You gotta read Wild at Heart. And your wife needs to read Captivating. I mean, those are 2 must-reads. I think they'll just challenge you in your relationship with God. And some of this comes out of that. Some of it comes out of Robert Lewis, but it all comes out of the Bible. And we've sort of added it and changed it and done it a little bit differently. But let me give you, it's before the fall. Genesis 1, you see man-made. Genesis 2, it's like this. You flew over in an aircraft and you saw all of creation in Genesis 1. Genesis 2, it's like the aircraft landed, and now you're looking at it a lot more closely, and you find out how man was meant to be. Verse 15 in Genesis 2, I'll just read it for you. This is from the New Living Translation. The Lord placed the man in the Garden of Eden to tend and watch over it. Now this is the honeymoon place he built for us. There's no sin, there's no thorns, there's no weeds. And what he does is he says, what I want you to do is I want you to tend and watch over it. I want you to have fun. I want you to, every day you get up, consider life to be, and in your sheet there, you'll see the word great, right next to it, adventure. That you and I are going to get involved in understanding the adventure guide. Sorry, change those words. Adventure guide. You're going to be the guide, G-U-I-D-E, on the adventure. Every day becomes that which you're excited to do. God designed us to love life, to love the adventure of life, to love work, to love relationships. He designed us. You are the adventure guide of your family. You are. If you are an adventure guide in your family, what you do is when you walk in, everybody's excited that you're there. Most of us come home, our adventure is long since passed by the time we get home, right? We sit down in the lazy boy chair and just hope we kind of get through the night, right? There's no adventure. Where did that go? Well, we've been created by God to live an adventure. Matter of fact, guys, you want to take the heart out of a man? Take the adventure out. And you just exist, doing your job day in and day out. You know, adventure guide was what God had us in mind. But he had something else. It says in the next verse, it says, the Lord God warned him, you may freely eat of the fruit of every tree in the garden. This is where choice comes from for a man. Except for the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If you eat its fruit, you are sure to die. Now what you need to understand is this. Eve is not there when this is said. She will never hear this from the mouth of God. She will only hear it from the mouth of Adam. Why? Because God turned to Adam and said, you are my secret service guy. You can write down secret service. You are the secret service guy in this woman's life. Because here's the deal, and God knows it. There's an enemy, and he's going to go after the woman. He knows it. She's the president. What's the last thing God made? Eve. When did God declare everything very good? After he made her. The height of creation is the woman. It's not man. It is the woman. He is the bridegroom. We are the bride, if you read Revelation. All right? It's the woman. It's all about her. Why? Because she can do two things you and I can't do. She can give life, and she can nurture. You and I don't nurture. If we can't fix it in 15 minutes, we give up, right? We have no idea. But she also can give life. We can't give life. Guys, guarantee you, if we had babies, we'd have one, and that would be it. We would never do that again. We're not stupid. Bill Cosby says, it's like taking your lower lip and pulling up over your top of your head. You do that one time. You won't do it a second time, right? It's one of those amazing things. God says, this is what she can do. Very similar in image to God, right? He says, now you have to protect that. You have to protect that. So I'm going to tell you, Adam, that you can have any tree in the garden, just not that one. Protect her so she doesn't get tempted to take advantage of it. You know the horrible story, right? He's standing there. He watches her eat. Do you ever wonder why Adam let Eve eat first?
See what would happen.
Yeah, exactly right. See if she dies.
Test it out.
God says you'll die if you eat it. Oh, she's still alive? Okay, I'm in. You know, that's... No wonder we're so romantic and good at this thing, right? I mean, it's just the worst thing. And then guess what happens when God comes and finds him? He goes, the woman you gave me made me eat it. He doesn't even take the responsibility. It was her fault. You know? That's why men are like simple, selfish, and cruel. All right. The next one, though, is so profound because God is building a case. This is all happening in Genesis 2 before the creation of Eve. The next one starts in verse 18, and it says this. Then the Lord God said, it's not good for man to be alone. I will make him a helper who is just right for him. And he has Adam name all the animals. And don't you think Adam's wondering if any of these animals are for him? Don't you think? I mean, come on. He's looking at them. They're all in pairs. They're having a good time. The giraffes are necking, you know. He looks at the alligator and says, oh, the hickey would kill you. Not even interested. But he looks at all these animals, and they're all interacting, male and female. He has nobody. You know what God's saying? Adam, you're going to need somebody. Adam doesn't feel like he needs anybody. He has God. He's walking with God. What more would he want, right? God goes, you're going to need something. You're going to need this woman. I'm going to create for you in this desire. This is where we get a little bit confused as men. Because what God did, The 4 things that God gave us. One is this adventure guide. 2, a secret service. The other is a team player. A team player. God designed us to be in teams. He says, it's not good for a man to be alone. I will make a helper who's just right for him. A helper is not, she's my servant. A helper is, together, we can stand on each other's shoulders and get to the rock up here. You know what I'm saying? That's the concept. Team, right? It's what it has in mind. Now, here's where our problem is, guys. Let's just take sexuality. When's the last time you approached sexuality as a team sport? See, a team sport means this. If she's not pleased, and if she's not desiring, and she's not satisfied, I'm not in. We don't do that, right? God said, I designed you to not do life alone. I'm going to give you this help me. And this help me, together the 2 of you are going to be able to do far more. In business, they say this. 1 + 1 does not equal 2 in business. 1 + 1 = 11. It's the impact of the 2 of you together is far more reaching. Same with your mate. God says, I want you to understand that I designed you to be involved in a team sport. Guess what? Men strive after being alone more than strive after being with a team. Especially if she's not responding the way I want to, right? The way we get messed. So what happens is, God says to me, you know what, Keith? I need you to walk into your marriage. Now, for the first 15 years, 20 years of my marriage, I think women take care of men. So I come home, you take care of me. And in that premise, in that understanding, there's no team in that. There's simply king and serfs. I saw that from my dad. That's what my dad did. When I was 11 years old, my aunt was dying of cancer. My dad was a godly man. My dad said, now I'm 11 years old when I hear this. I don't even think I know who God is. I'm going to church, but I don't really know who God is. My dad says, if Aunt Polly, my aunt, dies of cancer, he will never trust God again. She died, and he kept his promise. And for the next 45 years before his death, I watched him degenerate. I watched my dad go from this marvelous man to just a shell of himself, and became simple, selfish, and cruel. And what he also did was this: he pulled in, alone. Oh, he had my mom, but my mom was the caretaker. My mom was the driving force in his life. When my mom died, my dad couldn't handle it for 8 years. My dad just kept on thinking about dying every day because he didn't know what to do. You know, it's a team sport, guys. But you and I need to make sure we're tying ropes around our waists, all that kind of stuff. So these 3 things need to give way to the last thing. The last thing, you go down and God makes Eve. And in verse 24, this comes out. This is why a man leaves his father and his mother and is joined to his wife, and the 2 are united into one. United into one. And what this is so important. Why you don't live together is because God says you need to leave your father and mother, you need to cleave to one another, and then you become one. All right? It's in that order. That's why marriage is the order in which he has it. The last thing we're supposed to be is the first responder. First responder. Almost like an EMT. I'm a secret service on one side. I'm a first responder. Here's what we mean by a first responder. Guys, I'm responding to the need of my wife. I have focused there as the number one. My boys better know that the highest priority in our household is the protection of Lynn's heart. My sons, when they're 12 years of age, have to go to their mother and say, you no longer take care of me, I take care of you. Every one of my sons at 12 years of age says that. Why? Because at that particular point, if they keep going at this rate, they're going to marry a girl who they want to take care of then. And you know what, guys? Mothers don't stop taking care of naturally. They will hold on for a long time, right? NFL. Hi, Mom. What is that all about? I'm still connected. No, you're not. No, you're not. You honor. You respect. But boy, you break that connection, right? So we teach our guys. First responder means this. That at each phase of my life, I'm going to learn to leave connection with my family, break away. I'm going to cleave to one human being, and then we become flesh, one flesh. Sex doesn't happen until those first 2 takes place. It revolutionizes everything in that particular journey. When we get those 4 things, when we start to understand it, and here's what we just take those four phrases and work them. In Eldridge, he says every man has 3 things. He has a battle to fight. What am I going to fight for? Well, first responder, where do you fight? Fight for your team, right? you have a beauty to rescue. Every man has a beauty to rescue, right? Every man has an adventure to live. As you start to look through this, being a Secret Service agent, guys, means that's your battle. Your goal is to protect. Now, here's how we tell our guys to approach women. Now, I'm going to give you a little chance to discuss with each other, but here's the way I tell our guys to approach their wives. How does a Secret Service agent address the president? Have you ever noticed when a Secret Service agent and the president's around, where is he looking? At the president or not?
No, he's looking away.
He's facing away, right? Guys, we have to learn to stop leaning in on our wives like a Secret Service agent's asking if he can get into the Oval Office. It's not his job. His job is to make the president safe so the president can flourish. The bride of Christ can grow. My job is to face out and be invited in. Let me give you something that maybe will help. When you got married, the day you got married, your wife had a wall. Might have been a big wall, small wall. Women have walls. You know what men do? When you and I have problems, you know what we do as guys? Guys are so cool. We have a problem. We say, well, I don't have to worry about that. I'll throw it in the closet. And I'll ignore it until it smells. That's what we do as guys. That's what we do with our problems. Right? That is not true with a woman. A woman builds a wall with a moat around it, right? And when she gets hurt, she doesn't expand the size of the wall. She builds another wall with a moat on it and pushes you further away. And when she gets hurt, when I got married, Lynn had about 5 walls. And then I added another 5 or 12 walls to her life. So by the time I woke up and realized that I was losing the woman I loved, I was losing her. When I hit that moment, I suddenly, you know what I wanted to do as a guy, right? I wanted to rush through all the walls, get to the inside, and make it right. But guess who built the walls? She did. At who? Me. Guess what I had to do? I had to say to her, how can I make you feel safe today? That's what a Secret Service agent does. How do I make you feel safe today? And when I do that, guess what it means? Give me my responsibility and I'll guard it until one day when I ask you, how can I make you feel safe? You invite me through that one wall into the next wall. And into the next wall. I never get to the inner wall. Inside the inner wall is her in Christ. All right? But one of the greatest honors, if Lynn was here right now, she would tell you that she said she feels incredibly, completely safe with me. As a woman who's heavily abused, doesn't feel safe with any guys, she feels safe with me. But she would also tell you that a decade and a half ago, she didn't feel that way. That it takes, you got to learn to be a Secret Service agent. First responder means this. You need to be ear attuned to when there's a need, right? When you're a team player, realize that that's where my loyalty lies. Guys, we're sitting here, we're all here today because we're loyal to our families, our wife, our kids, concentric circles in our lives. What we do is we find out where the team is, and we build. So, you know when guys have affairs? Guys have affairs when they hit midlife crisis. Usually when something happens with their kids are leaving and he realizes it's just her and them, her and him. And that's when guys tend to have affairs. Now, guys that have a sexual problem have affairs throughout, but that's when guys tend to have affairs. You know when women have affairs? Women have affairs when their youngest child hits about 8 to 10 years of age. Right now, I'm dealing with 7 female affairs at our church. We have a rather large church, and I'm dealing with 7 female affairs. I'm only dealing with 2 male affairs. And the 7 female affairs, all of them are, with the exception of one, have children somewhere between the age of 8 and 11 as their youngest. Want to know why? Because they're trying to figure out what they're supposed to do now. And they're looking at this guy saying, is this all the option I have? Because I don't feel very valued. Why don't I feel very valued? Well, because I've been using, not caring, not protecting, not doing what I need to do in the heart. If you work those 4 phrases, let me reinforce that with some other things. You'll see in your column there, you're going to see letters K, W, F, and L. I absolutely love these 4 things. I'll just fill them out for you so you don't have to worry about it. I'll do them all at once. King, next to Adventure Guy. Warrior, next to Secret Service. Team player is friend. So king, warrior, friend. And last, first responder is lover. Is lover. And by the way, love is not sexual energy. Love is intimacy. All right, so it can be known on 1,000 different levels. Right. Now, when you understand King, Lover, Warrior, Friend, if you've ever done Robert Lewis's material, they do 1 week on it. Week 2. We do about 4 weeks on it because we look at it, we consider that to be the mind. The mind of a man has 4 shelves: the king shelf, the lover shelf, the warrior shelf, the friend shelf. And what you sort in your mind goes to one of the. There are only 4. Otherwise, everything else stays on the floor. You don't know what to do with that stuff. Men sort in these areas. Let me see if I can explain to you what that is. A king is the moral high ground. It's doing the right when the wrong is popular. When we do that, guys, we are the safest guys on earth. We think of kings as dictators. God doesn't think of them that way. God thinks of kings as those who do the right, the moral high ground. So who's the greatest king in the nation of Israel's history? David. What's the one thing that makes his whole existence tainted? Bathsheba. Right? Let me read for you something about him, because it's an interesting dilemma. This is where no king. Watch this. In the spring of the year, when kings normally go out to war, David sent Joab and the Israelite army to fight the Ammonites. When you normally go off to war, David sent them. He decides not to king it. All right? When destroyed the Ammonite army, he laid siege to the city of Rabbah. However, David stayed behind in Jerusalem. One day in the afternoon, after midday rest, David got up out of bed and was walking on the roof of his palace. He looked over and noticed a woman of unusual beauty taking a bath. Everything about that whole beginning is, guys, is he on the moral high ground? And no, he's not. Nothing wrong with seeing a woman taking a bath as you're walking around your kingdom when you're supposed to be off to war. It's when you get the binoculars out that we got a problem. And David goes, you know what, I'm going to play in that realm. No king, no moral high ground. Guys, you give the moral high ground to your family. So God, if you ever remember when we went back to what did God say? I want you to tell her about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's one of the coolest possibilities in the world. I want you to think. I want you to share with each other. Who's a guy you know that has consistently taken the moral high ground that you respect? If you're here with your dad, I'm giving you an exception. You're not allowed to say your dad. Okay? Because that takes you the pressure off. I don't want you to lie if it's not that, and I want you to, So, but here's what I like you to do. Who's a guy you know that consistently takes the moral high ground? I have 7 guys that hold me accountable. One of the guys is a very successful businessman who, as far as I can determine, has never done anything unethical in business. I can't tell you how refreshing it is to be around him. Because most businessmen I know have slidden at different times. Great Christian businessmen have slidden in times of ethics. This guy doesn't slide. He's a rock. He is a king. He struggles in a couple other areas we'll talk about, but he's one of those guys that holds me accountable. So I would say Phil Garber, who you won't know, but he's a king. He's a king. Tell each other who's a king in your life, a guy that you've observed. I don't want it to be Abraham Lincoln, who you've never met. So it has to be somebody. All right. So go ahead, share with each other. Who's a king in your life? All right. Okay. I want to encourage you guys. You know, somewhere in the world, if I asked them right now, who's a king in your life, they just said you. Some of you guys are kings in other men's lives. The moral high ground guy is really the one that God says, I'll trust you with the adventure. I will entrust you with the garden because you'll take the moral high ground. You will do the right thing. So I can entrust you with much. The adventure guide is the king, right? The second one that we have there is warrior. Now look at this one, because look at David. We're going to bypass warrior for a minute, and we're going to take a look at where this whole thing, where we kind of struggle. Go down to friend and notice this phrase. He sent someone to find out who this beautiful woman was. She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Elam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Now Uriah the Hittite is one of his captains who's off to battle, who is his friend. No friend in him, right? And there's no warrior. He's not off fighting, right? There's no warrior. There's no friend. What kind of guy is David? Look at the next one. It says, and then David sent messengers to get her, and she came to his palace, and he slept with her. Actually, they didn't sleep. That's part of the problem. They had just completed the purification rites after having her menstrual period, and then she returned home. Now, catch this. There's so many powerful things here. He sleeps with another man's wife. No king there, right? No moral high ground. But he also sends her home as soon as he's done with her. Did you get that? Heard this guy one time. He said, what do you do with the other 72 minutes of a pornographic film once you rent it? Right? Once you go through the first 8 minutes, guys, you're done. Right? Unless you're a normal human being. You've masturbated, you've come, and it's, what do you do with the last couple things? You throw it away. You just ignore it. You don't need it, right? That's what we do with women all the time. That's what David does with Bathsheba. No lover there. No romantic, intimate. It's just, I'm done, go. In fact, he's smart enough because he knows how vile this is that he sends her in the middle of the night. So he has all the information. There's nothing king, lover, warrior, friend can do. Nothing. But to encourage you guys, go to the next chapter, because the next chapter, David reinstates all four of these things. Guys, I don't know about you, but I spent a lot of years not being a king. Right? Spent a lot of years not being a warrior, not fighting for Lynn's heart. Spent a lot of years not being a lover, being very selfish in my relationships, in my intimacy. I spent a lot of years not being a friend. In fact, it wasn't until the last decade of my life that I developed strong male friendships. It was much easier for me to get along with women than men. You want to know why? Because women do what? Take care of men, right? God's had to rewire my whole being to understand how it is. And I have some of the most amazing friends that you can possibly imagine. Listen to this story about David. This is in chapter 12. He gets confronted by a guy by Nathan and says, "You little scuzzball." And here's what David confesses to Nathan. I have sinned against the Lord. David gets caught, and what does he say? I've sinned. Guys, that's king. That's king. Just so you know. We're going to talk about this in a little bit more depth in just a minute, but that's so king. When you screw up, you confess it. You don't have to beat yourself. It's covered in Christ, but you confess it. King is taking the moral high ground. David immediately, in every imagination, in every world, just became a king again. Because he said, I've sinned. I'm responsible. Guys, when we teach our men, until we get to the point where we say we're responsible for all of our choices, I'm responsible for every one of my choices, I'm going to be in trouble. No king. Man, God says, I'm giving you the freedom of choice, but you're responsible for it. When you learn how to use your core, the body, the soul, the spirit, the mind, watching out for the danger of the shadow, when you make a decision using all of that, guys, it's like a president sitting around with his cabinet getting input, and you make good choices. And God says, I'll hold you accountable for each choice you make. So that when you mess it up, what do you have to do? I have sinned. I've made a wrong choice. It's not somebody else's fault. God doesn't work that way. It's not the way it does. Listen to what happens, though. David continues. Nathan says, yes, but the Lord has forgiven you, and you won't die for this sin. Nevertheless, you have shown utter contempt for the Lord by doing this, so your child will die. Holy mackerel, that's just nasty. There's nothing in that I don't even know what to do with that. When Caleb got cancer, my 21-year-old, when he was 18, no question, I would have taken that bullet any way he wanted. And no way I would have had the courage he does to battle through cancer the way he has, and the 3 brain surgeries and everything else he's done. But the reality is, man, that you don't want your kid to die, right? Watch David. He becomes a warrior again. And after Nathan returned home, the Lord sent a deadly illness on the child of David and Uriah's wife. David begged God to spare the child. He went without food and lay all night on the bare ground. The elders of the household pleaded with him to get up and eat with them, but he refused, and he does it for 7 days. That's pure warrior, guys. You want to know what a man is? A man fights most of his battles on his knees. You want to be a real man? It isn't how strong your bicep is. It's whether you can drop to your knees and say, God, I desperately need your help. That's that divine connection. That's David, man. Pure warrior. In fierce mode at this particular point. He loses the battle. Child dies. All right, when he gets all done, though, he gets up and he washes himself up. They don't expect that. And then go down, just verse 22. They're all concerned. They go, what? You seem like you're okay now. He got up, he washed, he ate, the baby's dead, and he didn't do what they thought he was going to do. If he was that way on the dying process, he's going to be horrible after the death, not David. He gets up and he gets cleaned up and he says this, I fasted and wept while the child was alive. For I said, perhaps the Lord will be gracious to me and let the child live. But why should I fast when he is dead? Can I bring him back again? I will go to him one day, but he cannot return to me. There is this deep connection between David and his child where he believes that he'll spend eternity with him because of God's grace and the innocence of life. And I actually hold that scripture teaches us that if you lose a child, we lost a child, that if you lose a child, that God says, I'll take it into his presence. So that's sort of where I believe. But David says, I'm connected to that kid. Remember now, he was so disconnected because he was driven by the lower portions of his body with the affair with Bathsheba that he didn't care about his friend, Uriah. He didn't care about her. He'll have that man murdered in a battle to cover his sin with her. He doesn't care. Now he cares. Now he's reconnected. King, warrior, friend. And then you want to hear lover? Listen to this. Then now remember, Uriah is dead. And David comforted Bathsheba, his wife, and he slept with her. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son. They named him Solomon. The Lord loved the child. And he sent word through Nathan the prophet that they should name him Jedediah, which means beloved of the Lord, as the Lord commanded. Everything about this is normal now, right? There's intimacy, there's relationship, there's all the things that's supposed to happen. He's now back into the lover realm. David, in one chapter, over a period of time, but actually relatively close, within a few months, goes from no king, no lover, no warrior, no friend, to being all these things. Why? What? Because that adventure guide in him, that Secret Service, that first responder, that team player, all of that's now back in play. Now, here's what I want you to think in terms of. I want you to think in terms of how you've been functioning in your family. Have those things been true in your life? And let me give you 4 positions of spiritual warfare, and then I hopefully get out of here a little bit early. 4 positions of spiritual warfare that I think will make all the difference. I usually travel with swords. I didn't bring my sword today, so I got scissors. It's like, it'll take me forever to kill you with it. I feel like I'm being psycho somewhere. All right. I want to give you 4 positions of spiritual warfare. That's the 4 spaces on the bottom. And we'll just kind of fill them out in one at a time. And it's just so cool to think what they are. The first position is this. As a warrior, you see the enemy advancing. Remember now, let's say you're a Secret Service agent. Between him and me, between him and them is me, right? That's my position, right? The first position of a warrior in Scripture is out of Romans, where it says, all of us have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. First position is fallen. Guys, I will tell you that you will do a David sometimes. Write down the word fallen, because it's really important that you get this. You will fall. You will fail in your journey. God gives grace and mercy for that. Do not beat yourself up for it. Just get back up and re-engage, right? All of us will fall, so you will make a choice that will not protect the wall, the heart of the person you're trying to protect. When you and I live in this position, imagine this, you're here, and all of a sudden the enemy, for whatever reasons, bigger, better, faster, cunning, whatever it is, appeals to you, and you drop. And you drop. You're no longer in battle. All right? You're not good to anybody at this particular point. You have fallen. The longer you remain there, the greater the damage. Guys, when you sin, confess it immediately. One of the hardest things for me to learn with pornography I got free from pornography when I was 27. I got free from James 4, 7 to 10. James 4, 7 to 10 revolutionized my life when it came to pornography. One of the things that I learned was that if you let the sun go down on your sin, you give Satan a foothold, according to Ephesians. In James 4, it says, one of the parts of your struggle is that you are going against an enemy named Satan. It's not his fault, but the world, the flesh, and the devil are all attacking it all the time, right? We're responsible for our choices. When I would sin with pornography, it was the 6,797th time I've done it. I'm not going to say I'm sorry. How hypocritical is that? So guess what I was doing? When I don't confess my sin, I give Satan a foothold. And when I give Satan a foothold, it does considerable damage to everybody else behind me, right? So what I have to do is I confess my sin immediately. I don't care whether it's the 57,000th time you've done it, because the reality is what? God says, when you confess your sin to me, I remove it as far as the east is from the west, and I remember it no more. He doesn't remember it, you do. So when you confess, you fall. Guys, get back up. I want you to envision this. You're in a phalanx, right? You have a bunch of guys on either side of you, shields, metal. All of, if you understand much about the Roman era and the Greek era of warfare, it was designed to be done in guys on either side of you. Your tank was the guy next to you, right? You each have your metal. You're protecting. If you fall, the other two guys are vulnerable. They need you back up right away. So when you screw up, guys, don't beat yourself up. When you overeat, don't eat like Ultra Slim Fast Raw or something like that. Confess it and get back in the battle. Just get back in. You say, oh, I'm shooting, I'm not hitting anything. I don't care. Shoot, man. Get back in. So the first position of a spiritual warrior is fallen. Know it's going to come. Confess it and get back in right away. The second position of spiritual warfare is found in a passage in Timothy where it talks about this. It talks about, it's probably better if I read it for you just so you can hear it. It's in Timothy 2:22. Run from everything that stimulates the youthful lust. Instead, pursue righteous living, faithfulness, love, peace. Enjoy the companionship of those who call on the Lord with pure hearts. Run from anything that stimulates youthful lust. Here's the deal. I was in a hotel last night. Yes, sir.
Can you give us a scripture reference again?
Yeah, that was 2 Timothy 2:22. Apologize. 2 Timothy 2:22. First one was Romans 3:23. All right, now, here's the problem that we have. I'm in a hotel room last night, right? I'm 27 when I got free. I'm 58 now, so what is that? I don't know how many years that is. It's 31 years. I'm 31 years free of pornography, right? One of the first things I do when I get to the hotel room is I check to see, is there anything on that TV that could be a problem for me? And if it is, I call the main desk and say, hey, I just need the kid program. Whatever your kid program thing is, however you control it. Why? Because, dude, I'm not stupid. Now, I'm 31 years free, but I still have that same tendency, right? Here's what it means to flee youthful lust. It's like this. If you're looking at the enemy and you're ready to fight and you realize the enemy's going to beat you, it is okay to withdraw and take a new position back here. One of the greatest things a warrior can learn to do is learn when to run. Not when to abandon. You're never allowed to abandon. Not when to give up. Learn when to run. Don't play with problems. I was talking to this guy the other day, and he was telling me about how he's struggling with moral purity and how his apartment is right above an adult bookstore. Dude, move the apartment, man. If you're struggling in that area, you gotta work. So here's the situation. Learn to flee. Every good warrior. My wife is an EMT. My wife is the coolest one. You guys should be. I'm the luckiest man in the world. Lynn loves to mountain climb. She loves to hike. I like to fly over mountains. She likes camping. I like jacuzzis. It's kind of a cool life we have. And so I'd never hike if it wasn't for following her up a hill. She's just so much fun to watch. And so she's like, but she's an EMT. She's a first responder. The first thing, if you're an EMT, the first thing you have to know is the situation safe? Because if the EMT goes down, it doesn't help anybody. They have to assess the situation and know if the situation is safe. Guys, you know what that is? And that's the ability to withdraw. Right? It's to retreat. But it's not to retreat to abandon. Remember this. A man does not abandon. You don't abandon your family. You don't become unfaithful to your family. You don't abandon whatever God's called you to do. You don't run. You retreat. You flee. You back up. So the second word is flee. First one is fall. Second one is flee. All right? So I stand and then I fall. I get back up and I battle. I get back up and realize it's bigger than me. I retreat. And then reposition myself. Why? Because the third position is found in Ephesians 6. And it's to put on the whole armor of God that you might take your what? Stand. Everything about us as men is between us and whatever it's going after, innocents, our wives, our kids, the world around us. Between us and them, or what's attacking us is Satan. Our job is to do the fight. God put us on this earth. Our hearts come alive when we have a battle to fight, guys. It's when our heart comes alive. When I'm under the greatest pressure is when my heart's most alive. I'm pumping the most cylinders at that point. Because you know what? God wired us that way. We are not content if we don't have a battle to fight. It's why guys that die after they retire, you know what to do, right? God says, take your stand. Now here's the position of standing. One of my favorite parts about it, all that armor is built, all the armor of God is built to help you stand. All of it. It's all designed. It's not an advancing piece. The armor of God, the Roman armor, in Roman armor, in their boots, they had spikes that would go backwards. What they were geared for is this. In the battle, they would lock in so that you're not going to knock me back. I mean, it would be that kind of thing. It was also very good if you wanted to kick your opponent, but it was this spike that would lock me back, right? You're designed to stand. You're not designed to stand alone. Everything about standing is with other men standing next to you. One of the greatest honors of my life is Joshua, Joel, Caleb, and Seth, my 4 sons, who stand with me in a battle. Even Joel right now, who's walking away from God, if we ended up in a battle, he'd be there in 10 seconds. Right? To stand in a battle means we lock arms. Now I don't just have Joshua, Joel, Caleb, and Seth. I have 7 men. 7 men that I know if I called them on the way home tonight and said, I need you there, one of them's out of state, the other 6 would be there. That's just what you need, right? You don't stand alone. You get guys standing on either side of you. That's why when we do year 4 of nights, well, we do a thing called round table. That's the whole year. Learn to have men locked into your life. Without it, you're going to be in trouble. Because standing is designed to be in unison. It's designed to stand together. Because what are you doing? You're trying to stop the advancement of an enemy. Right? But there's something else you need to grasp. There's a 4th position of spiritual warfare. It's one that we'll do on rare occasions. We'll just call it here advance. You can just put advance. Or advancing. If it's falling, fleeing, standing, advancing. Advancing is this position. It's found in 2 Corinthians 10. You have divine power to demolish strongholds. There's a verse in the Bible that says the gates of hell cannot prevail against the church. You know what that means? It doesn't mean we're surrounded. It means it's surrounded. It can't hold us back, right? Now here's the deal. Advancing is a very tricky thing. We teach our men, one of our principles, I can't remember what it is. I think it's like principle 13. We have 15 principles we teach our guys. Principle 13, I think, is you never stand alone unless you're taking a stand. You never stand alone unless you're taking a stand. Here's what it means. It means that advancing means that here's my safe bar, right? We've established this ground. We're holding. I'm about to take back ground. When you take back ground, guys, you move alone. You have divine power. You can't sustain this very long. Your supply lines are in jeopardy. Your flanks are open. But it's when God's called you. So on the night, when we find out that Caleb's brain cancer should probably kill him, and my son walks in saying his wife has been unfaithful to him and he thinks it's over. When those 2 moments collide at that particular point, I have 2 choices. I can flee, because that's pretty overwhelming. Can't just stand here, right? Because standing is that there's a crisis going on. Or I can advance. And what I have to decide at that particular point is what I'm going to advance on. The first thing I had to lead the fight was for my son's life. And then I had to lead the fight for my son's marriage. And guys, I had other men who will catch up to me, but they weren't there at that moment. They didn't feel what I felt at that moment. Those men will catch up to you, and you'll develop a new line, right? You advance, and the guys catch up, and you develop a new direction in your life. That's a warrior. When you get to that level, then you will start to take back ground, and our culture will start to change. I actually believe, I really do, I can't explain this to you. I think there's a movement of men who are saying, that's enough, we want to be men again. I think you're sitting here part of that. I think you're saying, whatever it takes, and I'll tell you, it's scary to a culture who is used to men being whipped and pushed around. It doesn't mean we're dictators, right? We're king, lover, warrior, friend. We're more a high ground. We're not dictators. It means that we start to advance. Now, I'm going to share with you that every woman feels safe in what I just described. Every woman feels safe in what I just described for you. I didn't used to believe that. I was around too many women that were strong and had strong feelings about the whole thing, and I wasn't sure that was a true statement. And here's what I've discovered. And John Eldridge's wife, John and Stacy Eldridge, wrote a second book called Captivating. I don't know if you've ever seen it or read it, but Wild at Heart is the book for men. Captivating is the book for women. In it, he says, every woman longs for this. Remember now, a man longs to have a battle, beauty to fight, beauty to rescue, a battle to fight, and adventure to live. A woman longs to have her beauty revealed, to be romanced, and to be an irreplaceable part of a great adventure. And they're right. When a man does this, when we start living like this, everything changes. Now, and I'll share this and let you get out of here. In my marriage, I was not safe, according to Lynn. There were several things. I was playing on the edge of a few emotional affairs. I was very successful everywhere I went, by every proclamation, and nobody was seeing the joke, right? She did not feel secure and loved, right? And as a result of that, Lynn is withdrawing, right? Building walls. So as I'm doing whatever it is I'm doing, behind me there are walls being built. My wife's getting further and further away from me. Your children will do the same thing, especially if you have daughters. And as they build those walls, well, you're off doing whatever it is you're doing. And then one day it hit me. It hit me. What am I called to do? Well, I'm called to demolish strongholds. Guess who's had to build strongholds against me? My wife. How am I going to demolish them? By attacking them? She'll just build another wall. What I did is I became a man after God's heart. I became a man that says, God, whatever you want, I want to be. I want to become what you designed me to be. I want to be, and those are the four things we just looked at in the very beginning. I want to be a Secret Service agent. I want to be an adventure guide. I want to be a team player. And God, I truly, truly want to know what it's like to be a first responder. I want to be those things you wired me to be. And I started becoming that, and all of Lynn's walls started crumbling. And things started changing my life in some very, very profound ways to this point. Lynn invites me in all the time. We've changed the rules. Now I'm 58 years old, so this might have a little bit of effect on this. We changed the sex rules in our family. I don't ever ask. Ever. She knows that if you're like me, if Lynn sees a cat hit by a car, she's sexually out for like a month and a half. If I see a bus of kindergartners going off a cliff, I'm good in 10 minutes, okay? So what we've exchanged the whole thing. Guess what we do? Now, it's so much fun. Lynn is in charge of sexuality. And when she feels safe, she invites me in. She's wearing me out, guys. It's just like, and what's happening is, what happens is, there's this thing that we do when a man does what we just described, women say, I can trust him. I can feel safe in it. And guess what the most important thing is? I flourish in it. I become what God meant me to be. That's what a woman's saying. So we're going to learn to do that in our lives. So that's just some things. Take those four phrases, keep working them. It's like almost 10 after, so can I just pray with you and let you go, and then you can ask me a question afterwards. Whatever. All right. Father, thank you for these men. They're amazing courage today. About 5 guys that raised their hand and said they're here by themselves. Man, amazing. For the men that had the courage to come with other men. Because other men hold us accountable and we can't hide. And for the men that had the courage to say, I'll walk in here in this particular seminar and decide what it means to be a knight in a world of tyrants. What does it mean to be a true warrior? So that wherever I walk into, whatever room I walk into, it's safer because I've arrived. Lord, teach us to be that kind of man. And in so doing, I believe that we will demonstrate Christ. And in demonstrating Christ to a world that's lost and dying, it will begin to feel like it can approach you again. It can feel like you are a good and righteous and just and holy and powerful God. Teach us to be the examples of true knights, true men after your own heart. Thanks so much for the courage of these guys. Give them a great rest of the day. In Christ's name. Amen.
I trust this message has provided practical encouragement to you in your journey with Christ. Please visit noblewarriors.org to learn more about how Noble Warriors works to help churches reach and build men. God bless you, friend.